Good afternoon and welcome to the Joy Show. I'm Barbara Schreiner Trudell, your host. And as we begin today, I just want to remind you that joy is an acronym for just one you. And everybody who comes on this show with me is to explore their unique nature, the way they live, and to find their authentic voice. And it's people living their passion and purpose that I always invite on the show. So it's always an exciting time. As we begin today, I'd like to start with the land acknowledgement as we come together, knowing that the land that we are meeting on today is the original territory of many, many Indigenous people and nations. And this land was theirs long before documentation of time. And it is specifically the land of the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Haudenosaunee. The territory of what is known today as Toronto is under the One Dish, One Spoon Wampum Belt, a peace treaty between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe, and is a mutual agreement between nations for sharing land and resources. There are many Indigenous people who live here from all across Turtle Island, and it is my hope that we come to a place of reconciliation, of honor and respect for the land, for the people, and for the history. I remember that we are all one. Well, today I am super excited to have on my show Cheryl Rodgers. Now, she is the spiritual coordinator for the Unity Spiritual Center in Kitchener, Ontario. And she is my dear sister friend. So, Cheryl and I have been collaborating on a few things. And so today we're going to talk about a new project that we've got going on. But first, Cheryl is a remarkable, brilliant woman. And I just want to bring her in now so we can just talk about the work she's doing, how she's doing it, and how the two of us got connected. Oh, and there's Emmy is in the Zoom room here, or in the StreamYard. How are you, Cheryl?
I am so wonderful. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm excited about all the things that we are talking about and planning.
Well, it's exciting because ever since you and I connected, so we may as well start there so that people have an understanding of that. We met in person a year ago at a conference in Vancouver. And, it's like the minute you got off the plane and we met at baggage claim, it was like sisters from another mother.
I know. I can remember that so clearly. I remember you sort of sitting there, and I came out and I looked at you, and you put up your hand, and I put up my hand, and it was like we were reuniting almost. Never mind that we'd never met each other.
It's always funny, meet people online because we've been in Zoom meetings together. But the connection is different when you then meet in person. And it was so powerful. Like I really see you as my sister. And the bond that we have was just immediate and very like-minded. We have an idea about spirituality and this life journey that really quite matches.
Absolutely. I remember we had our own rooms at this place, and coming into your room and sitting on your bed and having this conversation. And it was like, oh my God, it was like, yes, 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 I agree. And yes, this and that. And we were just like so in agreement with each other.
Yeah.
With all the things that we believe and spoke about. And so that was very exciting. It was like we knew that one day we would do something together.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. And like the ideas that we were talking about at that time was the New Thought Bridge, the idea of, there's all these New Thought organizations, there's CSL, there's Unity, there's, the AGNT, there's the Universal Foundation for Better Living, blah, 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 blah. It's going on forever and ever. And ultimately, we're all teaching one thing.
Yeah.
Teaching oneness. And so we've talked about that, bridging those gaps, bringing together everything so that we're all kind of supporting each other and moving forward. And you and I have been doing some of that, collaborating between our organizations. But what I'm really excited about is our new show that's going to be right here on the New Thought Media Network starting next Wednesday at noon Eastern time, called
Spirit Cafe.
There's your cue.
Very
Yeah,
clever.
you're a
And
clever.
yeah, just inviting courageous conversations to take place and to be able to create a safe space to talk about things that are sometimes challenging and difficult to talk about. And sometimes we don't have a place for that. So I think that's what our intention is, to have that space.
Exactly. Like being able to, talk about death, talk about medically assisted dying, talking about abortion, politics, religion, the use of the word God, which can really ruffle feathers.
Mhm. Mhm.
All of these different things to be able to create a space where we can have differing opinions
Yeah.
and respect one another enough to listen and start to heal some of those old wounds, those ideas of separation.
Mhm.
Because there is,
Yeah. Exactly. And to be open, right? To be open to hearing different opinions. There's no right, there's no wrong. It just is what it is to you, and it is what it is to me, and the same for anybody else. And I might shift my way of thinking from something that I might hear. Or I might bring something to the conversation that will help shift somebody else's way of thinking. And either way, it's okay, whether that happens or not.
yeah, I think I remember watching a TED talk of a gentleman, Daryl Davis, who's a musician, and he talked about as a black man choosing to sit down with the head of the KKK and have a conversation. And they did this over many, many years. They got together regularly and they were able to converse because they chose to respect each other, even though they didn't agree with each other.
Mhm.
And the shifts that occurred as a result of that were pretty phenomenal. And I think that's the most important thing. And thinking back to the conference we were at, one of the things that happened there was we kind of did a little bit of that, oh, what do you call it? The human library, where members of our group were able to share their story and the stuff we discovered.
Yeah, very powerful.
Holy man, I was shocked by just what people were saying, like, oh, I hitchhiked across Africa when I was, 19 years old or something. I'm like, you did what?
Mhm.
It's like these stories that we would never know if we didn't sit down and open up our ears and fermer la bouche,
Yeah,
that mouth a little bit so that we could actually hear what somebody else is saying. I think that's sort of for me, that feels like the way that we're going to begin to get to a place of harmony in our world
mhm,
is to come to understand and accept one another as we are where we are, without
exactly.
desire for them to be different.
Well, what that exercise did, I think, Barbara, was really take us into knowing each other deeper. And
Hmm.
how often do we take the time anymore to do that, right? I remember as a school kid, I used to, meet somebody and want to know their whole life story. But right now, we've just become so busy and it's like, oh, what's your name? Where are you from? What do you do? Okay, nice to meet you, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, to get to know each other deeper and see the depth of each individual was really lovely.
Yeah, it kind of changed, because we all have perceptions of each other,
Mhm.
right? We look at somebody and within probably 10 seconds, we've sized them up, who we think they are. And we probably couldn't be more wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
It's, but we do it all the time. It's like, oh, this is this is that. What I found really remarkable in that whole process, because it was everybody on the Unity Canada board that was meeting, it's like we all knew each other a little bit, but the truth is we really didn't know each other
Yeah,
at all. And that the conversation that we had and that willingness to share our story, whatever we were comfortable sharing, really made a huge difference on how, I mean, I was in awe of Vicky when she was talking about, hitchhiking across Africa. I'm thinking, a little white girl hitchhiking across Africa? Like, are you kidding? Like, who is that?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure lots of people do, but I didn't know anybody who had done that, who
Mm-hmm.
at a very young age was brave enough to go to a different country that has different language and be able to just roam around. I wouldn't hitchhike across Canada. And I live here.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't do that today, that's for sure. But many years ago, it was still quite safe. But
Mm,
I think what you're speaking to is needing to take the time, because that's what we did. We took the time, we put aside the time to do that, rather than just work, 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 work. Like,
yes.
and that was really an important piece of
Mhm.
being together. And I think that we need to think about that more in all areas of our life.
I agree. One of the things that I really appreciate, and I've taken it into other things, is on the Unity Canada board where we both serve, the heart seat that we do at the end of every meeting, where we appreciate one of the members. Everybody goes around and says how much they love, appreciate whatever that individual. And there's something really lovely about that because it causes you to stop for a moment and go, what is it that I really know about this person?
Mm-hmm.
Because now I need to speak it. So if I don't know much, I better get some information before the next time because it would be a little bit embarrassing. But I think what I love about it is how loving it is and how kind and respectful and honoring that it is. And so I'm now doing it with my board at CSL. We complete every board meeting with that. And then also I'm on a more corporate type board with PWA Toronto, and I've introduced it there. And it is being very well received. And, again, it's taking the time out of our busyness. And interestingly to me, all three of these boards operate very harmoniously.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's something to be said about how we close our meetings, how we start our meetings that actually creates that space.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I love that.
yeah. It's all about energy, right? And the energy we create together.
Hmm. Everything is energy.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Exactly.
that's a way of looking at things too that sort of changes it when we go, there is only energy, there's only one form of energy actually, and then it manifests based on whatever mold we create here, we form it. So the idea of mind over matter, it's really mind into matter,
Mm-hmm.
in a way.
Yeah. Exactly. And I mean, Unity teaches that, CSL teaches that, just so many new thought movements. And so again, it's really about, let's talk about what each other is teaching and experiencing, because it needs to be, one of the principles is that we need to walk the talk we know
Yeah.
and experience it. And it doesn't belong to any one person or any one organization.
Yeah. And I think the more that we honor one another, I think that's the message that's becoming really loud and clear. Even the course we took this morning, it's not so much about the organization or whatever, it's about the individuals and how we create community. And I think these conversations that we'll be having on Spirit Cafe are all about talking about real life situations, real life experiences, what's happening in the moment, whether it's on the news, if it's something in our communities, where we start having those courageous conversations. Like we talk about gun laws, we talk about abortion, we talk about women's rights, we talk about racism, and we begin to sort of unearth what people are thinking and feeling, not to say here's the right answer or the wrong answer, but rather to open up conversation and dialogue so that we can all come to learn something new. And I think if we're teachable, then anything is possible. We
Mm-hmm.
actually could arrive at a more peaceful and harmonious world. simply through conversation that happens
Mhm.
respectfully.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
agree
You
to
know.
disagree.
Yeah, and the other thing that we have spoken about as well is inviting people to write into us and tell us what they would like to talk about, what's on their minds, what's on their hearts, right? We have an email address it's spiritcafe2@gmail.com where people can do so. And we'd love to know what people would like us to bring to the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's nothing's off the table. Like nothing is taboo in my mind. It's, whatever people want to talk about, let's do
Mhm.
that. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about, you know, domestic violence. Let's talk about women's rights, men's rights. Let's talk about what's happened with the indigenous people in North America and around the world for that matter. Let's talk about what's really going on. I know for me, one of the things that kind of challenged me over the last little while is conversations about Ukraine being at war. And I thought, isn't it interesting? And this will probably ruffle some feathers, but isn't it interesting that we're focusing so much attention on supporting Ukraine, but we're ignoring all the other wars that are going on around the world?
Mhm.
And that disturbed me because it suggested to me that a white country is more important. And the reality is, it isn't. In
Mhm.
fact, I don't even think white people are the majority of the world.
Mhm.
And so, again, there's this imbalance that is happening. And I think as we begin to have some of these conversations, we'll probably ruffle more than a few feathers on the way. But I'm kind of okay with that. How about you?
Yeah, I think that's important, right? I think that's the only way that we can really get to feeling and understanding where we stand on things
Yeah.
is by having that conversation and hearing others and then being able to form our own feelings and thoughts around that. What that brings up for me, just as an example, is how we are controlled by the media,
Yes.
right? Because the media focuses on that. And so we don't even think further than what we're seeing and hearing. And that's, I think what that's about. And that's a bigger discussion too.
Well, it is. And something just occurred to me, something I'd heard the other day about even pronouns. You'll see beside my name it's she, her. I have friends who are they, them. I've got other people. And actually, I would ask Deja to put she, her after yours because I
Mhm.
believe that is your pronoun. Because I think we honor everyone by honoring whatever is evolving. And what's evolving right now is this conversation around gender, which to me is such a silly conversation. Like when I fill out a job application, why do I need to put in gender? Or when I go get, my passport or my driver's license or whatever. I mean, you've got a photo of me, you've got my name, my birthday, my address. Unless you are my medical doctor, you don't need to know my gender. Like, what has that got to do with anything? So I always find that this is a conversation that, I'm looking at going, how do I create more inclusion? So because people who are shifting their pronouns are announcing them, I feel that I need to announce mine just to honor that space, that it's not just, somebody who's different than she or him, but rather all of us can begin to honor the whole journey. Yeah, Rev Me, they, them, we, us. So again, and it's a transition. I've talked to a few people who go, I don't understand when you say they, that means more than one person. They is simply a pronoun. Let's just use it and not question it. Like I've got family members who are they, them. It's like we want to begin to learn new things begin to discover new ways of being. And we can't do that if we sit in our little box and go, my way's the right way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I learned, because I, went after the incident with the killing of Floyd,
Mhm.
I did some work on myself with anti-racism and some courses because I realized that there was a lot that I didn't know. And so how can I speak to something that I don't know? And I think that's an important piece as well that people could think about is before we have an opinion, before we say something and have this decisive stand on something, it's important to educate ourselves so that we can understand a little bit more, a little bit deeper about a topic that we have an opinion on. And that's one of them.
It is. And I think our opinions can get us into a lot of trouble uh,
Mm-hmm.
because they're not based on fact. More often, they're based on emotion. And because we have a belief system that we don't even really know what's in our belief system. But for myself, for example, I remember when we did a workshop over a year ago with Unity Canada, and we had Kika Ojo Thompson come in and talk about Black lives and racism and all that. And she said the only people who can be racist are white people. And I was waiting for everybody to drop off the call because they were all white people. But they didn't. They stuck around. And then she went on to explain that it's because white people are the only ones who benefit from racism. So it's not that other people can't hate different cultures or skin colors or whatever, but where's the benefit? And the benefit, of course, goes to the white person. So it's like, hearing that and understanding, and then even from the book Me and White Supremacy, I think that's what it's called, where she talks about if you're white, you're racist, right? It's like because you've been raised in a white home with white parents and maybe in a white city. I was raised in a white city. You weren't, but I was. And all of a sudden, that's the norm. That's like all of a sudden, then that causes other questions, where you might say or do something that's culturally appropriate from where you were, but is highly offensive.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember with our babies, our little babies were always called monkeys.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we came to Toronto, myself and another woman came to Toronto, and we were serving at Jesse's Center for Teens, working with teen moms. And a lot of them were mixed race or Black. And she was looking after the babies one day and she called this little baby a monkey. Well, we got called to the mat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's racist. I went, no, it's not. It's ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. I mean, I knew, but she didn't. And it's like sometimes we say things because we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's okay. We step in the mud and we go, wow, thank you for letting me know that. Thank you for taking the time to tell me what I didn't know so that I can do better next time.
Exactly. And that's the point, right? It's okay. I don't have to be right. I don't have to know. A lot of what we believe, what we think, what we experience comes from our environment. It comes from our learning, from growing up, school, family, community. And so if we can be okay with the discomfort of it all, I think that's really what we're talking about is
Yeah.
not to take it personally.
Yeah, because I'm going to make a mistake if I don't know. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person. It just means I don't know, but am I willing to learn? Am I teachable? And I think that is probably the most important thing for any of us is to be teachable, to stand in the moment and go, wow, I could have done that better. I remember speaking at a church that was, a Black congregation and talking about how I was the black sheep of the family. As soon as it came out of my mouth, I knew it was inappropriate. And so when I came down off the podium, sure enough, somebody came to me and said, do you really think that was an appropriate thing to say? And I said, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
And that just changed the energy right there. There was nothing combative. I didn't defend myself. I knew I'd made a mistake, and so I just accepted that, yeah, she was right.
Mm.
So I don't have to be right. I don't have to be perfect. I'm human,
Yeah,
and I know
exactly.
what I know, and I don't know what I don't know. But
I think that's very true. And then there's the other side of things about when are we going a little bit over the top, right?
absolutely,
When are we um, calling somebody on something when really it was never not just meant that way, but it was never, I don't know. I just think that sometimes we go from one extreme to another. And
Mhm.
so, how do we land in the middle where we can be respectful and loving of each other and not always be in judgment and attacking or feeling
Yeah.
bad about something?
Well, and I think that's part of it because I remember another time I said something that was inappropriate that I didn't know. And one of the members phoned me up and said, I know nobody else will talk to you about this, but I love you. And I just want you to know that when you say this, it sort of gives this impression to some people. And I went, well, thank you for telling me that because I didn't know. And now I won't do it again. And what's happened is, I mean, it was done lovingly and gently and respectfully. And I received it with love because I simply didn't know, and she knew I didn't know.
Mhm.
But what was wonderful is it has raised my level of understanding to a point where I now see how insidious racism is and how it is all over everything about how white is best. And so it's interesting for me now to look at some of the things that are going on in the world and going, well, we could alter this or change that or
Mhm.
begin to view things in this way. So I think there's kind of an excitement in me about that. It's like I'm learning things without blaming myself or judging myself. And I think that's part of the journey that we're on too, is to be able to hear a different opinion without feeling like, oh, I'm such an idiot or I'm so bad or I'm so awful, but to go, wow, thank you. Like, that's
Mhm.
so cool. I had no idea. And we
Mhm.
learn something and then we grow from that,
Yeah.
which, hopefully is what most of us are doing. And like Rev Me said in the chat, our language has evolved, right?
Mhm.
And so as we look at language over the generations, it's like things are different. Kids a few years ago were talking about everything's bad or, but they meant good.
Mhm.
So it's like we look at language and understand that, I mean, I believe words have power. So how we use them and the intent behind them also has value in it, validity, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, so it makes a big difference. We're going to take a brief commercial break. So hang on, everybody. We're going to be right back with more interesting conversation with the beloved Cheryl Rodgers and myself. Stay tuned to The Joy Show.
New Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
Welcome back to the Joy Show. I'm here with my dear friend, beloved sister, Cheryl Rodgers, and we're talking a little bit about a show that we're starting next week on New Thought Media called Spirit Cafe, and it will air noon Eastern time on Wednesdays every week, sometimes with a guest, sometimes without, but we're going to be touching on topics that might be a little uncomfortable for some. And what we want to do is bring up differing points of view and to create conversations that help to build understanding and help us to maybe create a greater sense of comfort in the world around us. So, Cheryl, what some of the topics that are on your mind that you think we need to dig a little deeper with? Anything in particular?
Well, I think you mentioned a lot of them. I definitely what we've talked about is seeing what's going on in the news, in the media. I think it's important to even just talk about media, to talk about politics, to talk about religion, sex. All the things that we've always been told. When you're socializing, don't talk about that. Well, why not, right? So. And I think it's important as well for people to be able to give us some thoughts and ideas. What's on your mind? What's worrying you? What's inspiring you? It doesn't have to all be negative. Like, let's talk about some good things that are happening and your perspective on that as well. So I think it's the world is our oyster.
Well, that's it. And I love that idea of just exploring every imaginable topic,
Mhm.
whatever it is. I mean, there's so much going on in the world around us, and we have the ability to begin to talk about things in ways that we never have before. I remember growing up where what happened in the household stays in the household. You just don't share what you're thinking, what's going on, because people might judge you. Yeah, they
Mhm.
might. It's okay.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
let's talk about the things that really matter and talk about things that are really important. My daughter said to me yesterday, she's 17, and she said to me, "Wow, you're the coolest mom." And I went, she goes, "Well, you just talk about everything." Like, I talk about my life and what it was, what it is. And not all parents will do that. Some feel like, well, I can't share this because that's when I was being bad and I don't want my kids to know that. But the reality is, we're all human. We've all made mistakes. We've all made choices that maybe didn't serve us very well. And by hiding it, are we serving anyone? Or is it a way of communicating that allows us to reveal our humanity to our families, even as we reveal it to the world as well?
Yeah, some of the things that I personally love to talk about is change. Things are not the same. What are we talking about when we say a new normal? What does it mean to say let's go back to normal? Is there such a thing as going back? There's just so much, right? I love to talk about reality, what's real and what's not real, right? Because everything is from our perspective. And what you were saying about, like family and things, there's so many versions of ourselves. I see myself one way, you see me another way, my husband will see me a different way. And
Yeah.
so again, who am I? I am who you interpret me to be, right, in your mind. And so that's the other thing, is also how real are we, when are we real and when are we not? I don't know, it's just there's so much.
I love it. I love it. It's like, what am I anyway? Yeah.
Who am I, what am I, where am I from?
Well, the masks we wear, the different personas we put on, depending on who's standing in front of us, like there is so much that sometimes I remember years ago doing a 10-day silent retreat, a Vipassana meditation retreat. And in that 10 days, it's like you come to terms with you because there's no distraction.
Mhm.
There's no TV, there's no radio, there's no journaling, there's no books, there's no workouts, there's meditation and sleep, and that's kind of it. So you come to that place of hearing your own thoughts and, what is it I really think about me? And can I get okay with me? Like that's the part that's so important that we kind of miss is who am I in the grand scheme of things? And can I get okay with being me?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we don't like ourselves very much and
Mhm.
we assume other people won't like us either.
Mhm.
So we hide.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what if we told the truth?
Yeah. And what is that?
I know, I know. I remember years ago speaking at a church, and it was on Mother's Day, and so just talking about being a mom and being a woman and all that. And all of a sudden, there's this prompt from inside of me to e express or share how many times I've been married. And I was like and finally I went, you know, like, Pierre's favorite saying is, fifth time is the charm. And, I made a joke about, well, I thought Liz Taylor was going to get a run for her money, but, I've stopped. It's all good. And yeah, there was this collective kind of, what did she just say? And then it sort of landed and there was some laughter, but it was one of those things that for me was really scary to share because what are people going to think of me having
Mhm.
had 5 husbands? It's like,
Mhm.
what's going on with you, girl? But the fifth one stuck. Like our 20th wedding anniversary is coming up next month, and so obviously we're doing okay. But it took me finding me
Mhm.
or some version of me that I could accept and love that was able to get to a place where I could find a person that I could actually be with without hiding completely,
Yeah.
right?
And I love that, that it took you being able to be a person that you love and respect and cherish, right? And that's what's important. And so, even talking about what other people think, like, is that important?
Nope.
Why is that important? Those kind of things, because we grow up thinking that it matters, but what matters is really liking ourselves and
Absolutely.
being the best person that we can be.
Yeah.
Then what does it matter what somebody else thinks?
And that's such a great lesson. I know Course in Miracles teaches that what people think of you is none of your business, and both positive and negative. And I remember Meg Ryan being interviewed one time, and she was on Oprah, and she said she doesn't read any reviews about herself. And Oprah was like, "Really?" And she goes, "Yeah." She says, "Because if they say something really good about me, the next time I'm on set, that's in the back of my head. How do I accomplish that again?" And she said, if they say something bad about me, I might cry or whatever. So I don't want to hear that either. And I thought, but how smart is that to just every day show up on set and be the best that you can be in that moment rather than holding yourself accountable to some other standard that somebody else has put on you that can't be based in truth because it comes from their perception of what has occurred.
Exactly. And that's when you're not being true to yourself or true to anybody else.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And you mentioned earlier something about normal, and I hear that quite a bit these days, oh, it's a new normal. And when I think of normal, I go, well, what is that really?
Mhm.
It's a recipe for mediocrity at best, right?
Yeah.
And it's like I've always challenged that idea of, oh, well, this is normal. No, no, normal doesn't exist. That'd be like saying every single one of us is like me. And so that becomes the basis of normal, right? So if you're not like me, which of course no one on earth is, then all of a sudden it's like everybody's off somehow, right? But what if normal doesn't exist at all, never has, never will? But what there is that natural expression that we bring to the table or not,
Yeah.
right? And I just live my life and my joy and tell the truth and do it quickly.
Exactly. Just one you, right? And so when we talk about oneness and who are we or what are we are unique expressions. We say that we are unique expressions of the oneness. And so there is no such thing as normal. It's really just about opportunity, it's about potential, it's about just being able to do the things that we can do. And you know, one of the things, I mean, I'm not big on religion, I'm not big on the Bible, I'm not big on any of that. But one
Right.
of the things I always say is that when we talk about made in the image and likeness of, man has made God in our image and likeness, right? And so where we are made in the image and likeness is that we are creators.
Yes, we
Right?
are.
That's how we are made in the image and likeness, because we are part of the one. There is no separation. Therefore, what one can do, so can the other.
Absolutely. We're all created unique and special,
Mhm.
all expressions of energy, formulated, however, and expressing that energy, which has infinite potential.
Mhm.
And what are
Exactly.
we doing with it?
Yeah.
Measuring ourselves against somebody else.
And what we do then is we make ourselves smaller than what we are. And I'm
Absolutely.
guilty of that too. I mean, it's part of the human factor, right? It's just who we are as human beings having this experience in this dimension.
And we've been raised by people who could only, share with us what they believed about the world around them.
Mhm.
And then we've taken that on, and it has shifted our perception of ourselves
Exactly.
based on, the modeled behavior of those around us, whether it
Mhm.
be teachers, siblings, parents, um, religious leaders, whatever, And I think, we were talking earlier about the word God and how some people are really uncomfortable with that word. It's just a word. It is a word to describe an infinite energy and infinite possibility. And because of, like you said just a few minutes ago, that we have formed God in our our perception of the human form, what happens is we now look at this judgmental, critical guy in the sky passing judgment down on us mere humans, rather
Mhm.
than accepting that there is within us an infinite potential that all of us have, not some, all. There is no one who's been left out of the equation. And so when we come to understand that the energy that I possess is the energy of the universal one, I'm just an individualization of it. All of us have, all of us can do anything
Exactly.
once we set our mind to it.
Yeah, exactly. And we can choose to change the past, present, and future. Like,
Absolutely.
wow, you
Mhm.
know, I mean, how amazing is that? And some people say, how can you change the past? Well, why? Because it's the stories we tell ourselves, right?
That's all it
All we
is.
got to do is just tell a different story.
And I've done that with a number of my clients where, there'll be a particular experience that they've had that they have judged as being really horrible, awful. And so the experience, the memory of it is so negative and so hurtful and so harsh. And I've invited them to go back and remember it the way they do, and then end it, and then go in again, almost like a movie theater, and project onto that movie screen what you would have liked to have experienced instead.
Mm-hmm.
And so then every time you think about the story, that's the memory. Like you just keep running it till it becomes your reality. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how you change the past in that moment, because now the hurt that you had around whatever you perceived that experience to be is now changed.
Mm-hmm.
And so the past is different because the way we look at it is different. I had an experience when I was 11 in grade 6, and I had missed a day of school because I was homesick. My dad had written me a note. That was in the day when they didn't phone the schools. They just wrote you a note and you take the little piece of paper in. And so when I went back to school the next day, I didn't bring the note with me. I'd left it on the kitchen table. And so I go in and my teacher is like, "Where's the note?" And I went, "Oh, I forgot it home. I'll bring it back after lunch." And I get called to the principal's office. And the principal's yelling at me for lying about being sick. And I'm like, "Well, I was sick." And he goes, "Well, I phoned your father, and your father said he knows nothing about you being away from school that day." Well, I was like, that was like the ultimate betrayal. So I went home and I got the note and I brought it back. And, the principal was beside himself. He felt so terrible for having jumped all over me. And what's interesting is I held that betrayal for so many years. And then a couple of years ago, I thought, my dad had a habit of jumping to conclusions. And I thought, I wonder if when the school phoned him on the Friday, if he was in his mind going, "What, she's not at school today?"
Mm.
Like, did he not listen? Because that kind of was his way of being, to not really listen clearly to what was going on.
Mhm.
And by doing that, I healed the whole thing. Because now there was a bit of doubt as to whether my perception of events was accurate.
Mhm.
And so the past was changed. There
Yeah.
was something new because I decided to view it from a different standpoint. And we
Mhm.
always have that ability to do that. We're very
Mhm.
powerful.
Mhm. Absolutely. I love Emmy's comment as well, is if she doesn't like the end of the story, she changes it often. And then she says, "I am transformed by the woundedness I may have felt." And that's exactly it, right? Because the subconscious doesn't know the difference between what is real and what isn't. And I
Yeah.
mean, that's scientific. I remember reading about that. Oh my goodness. I don't want to age myself, but I don't know, over 35 years ago. I don't know if you remember a book called Cybernetics.
I do.
Oh my, and I just remember, that you could really just shift things by conditioning your mind and using your subconscious, because it doesn't know the difference. And so that's exactly what we're talking about here.
And it's one of the things that I have shared a lot is event of itself is neutral. And then whoever's looking at it makes a decision, right? Calling it good or bad.
Mhm.
And depending on the label that gets put on it, then the experience comes out of that. Because if I look at it and I go, "Whoa, that's bad," then all the negative emotions come up: anger, pain, sorrow, grief, whatever. But if I look at it as good, all of a sudden it's joy, peace, happy, freedom, love, whatever. But none of that's real. It's
Mhm.
all an effect of a thought that I had about a neutral event,
Exactly. The meaning we give things.
meaning we give things. That's one of the things I like in the Bible where, when Adam is given the task of naming everything, and God says, "Whatever you name a thing, that's what it will be for you."
Mhm.
And that holds true today.
Mhm.
If I name it bad, then that's my reality. And I come from a family of 10 kids. Now we can
Mhm.
look at the same day and every one of us have a completely different experience of it.
Mhm.
That was right.
Exactly. And we have the same thing in our family. We're three girls, and oh my goodness, speak to each one of us. You'll think we lived in different places with different parents. It's like crazy for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I'm sure that's many people's reality.
Oh,
So I mean, that speaks to what we're talking about is the way we perceive things and the meaning we give it. And I'm really appreciating Mary Ellen's comments. I think she's definitely seems to be on the same page. So I'd love for you, Mary Ellen, to put in our chat some of the things that you would love to hear or talk about in our
yeah.
future conversations.
Well, Mary Ellen, she goes by ME. Rev ME is my associate minister at the Center for Spirituality and
Ah,
Level Egg. She's my associate. So You'll get to meet her in person on the 12th when we do our
Wonderful.
service. But
Mhm.
Emmy has got a great perspective on all of this, and she's been studying this teaching for a very long time. So yeah, Emmy, send us some questions and things because boy, we would love to hear.
Yeah, great. She says yes, she was thinking of writing for next week. That would be wonderful.
Yeah,
And yeah, certainly invite anybody to send in different thoughts and ideas. And even if we don't get to them one week, we'll get to them another.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
We'll build a list of things. Because I remember when in the US they started talking about, uh, you know, Roe versus Wade and removing the rights of women to uh, have abortion. And it's like, I was dumbfounded by it, going, what century are we living in and what's going on here? And it was interesting the amount of comments and conversation and the feelings that came up
Mhm.
for many people around that.
Mhm.
So there's another topic. And I recently was working with a client who had a relative who was going to have a medically assisted death. And again, the conversation around that, like, should we do that? Shouldn't we do that? What's right? Whatever. It's just so important to have these conversations, agree to disagree sometimes, and be willing to learn something new, like research a topic and get more information rather than our infinite willingness to just guess.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, we do come with our opinions, our thoughts, all that kind of thing. And that's okay until we know better, right? Like that might be okay until the day we die, or it will be something that can change in the future. And there's no judgment. There's no, you shared earlier on, and maybe you can speak to that again, that mission you had about everyone being welcome, and I think that's important.
Yeah, the mission that I have at CSL on the Lake is to welcome you as you are, where you are, without judgment or criticism, providing a sacred place of learning and growing as you seek to achieve your greatest dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me, and then, it goes on to talk about how we do that. But, how do we feel towards Putin?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Exactly.
like everyone else, Putin is simply an expression of the one and choosing to express however he's expressing. And we can have judgment about that and anger and frustration and whatever about it, or we can begin to come to a place of striving to understand and to be loving. Like I always look at anything that feels like it's causing challenges in the world around me. I want to turn around and be able to accept a differing opinion. It's not mine. I can't agree with it. I personally don't believe in war. I don't think violence solves anything. So for me, I have to get past my judgment of here's a bad person to recognizing here's a person who is doing what they believe is best in their own understanding. And so what I want to do is just bathe that individual in our world in an energy of love and lift myself out of the question or the statement or the judgment and just go, they're doing what they're doing. And I don't have the inside track to that. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know this person personally, and I don't live inside their head. So there's,
Yes,
and
difficult conversations are on and just beginning, you
yeah,
see.
yeah,
And there so what I would come from is, yes, I think that's wonderful. And I think you're probably a little bit more enlightened than me, because I keep thinking, why doesn't somebody take him out? But then then I have to say, I also go to a place where I think to myself that we, in our human capacity, make judgments and calls about what's good and what's bad, and we really don't understand the bigger picture.
We have no
And
idea.
we have no idea. And I think that big picture is actually incomprehensible for the human mind to understand and to know. And so, it's some might say, well, that's a justification for, being okay with everything. Well, that's okay. If it works for me, I'm okay with that. If what you say works for you, I think that's great. But that's one thing I also do is, when I do have these negative emotions and feelings, I try and send love and light, and really sort of, because I don't want to feed that energy with my negative energy. So when I become aware of that, I can bring that down so that I can put out and choose to put out a better energy.
And I think that's important. Like when we come to understand there's only one thing going on, we all live, move, and have our being in it. The thoughts that we think are impacting the whole of it.
Mhm.
So if I can create more of an equilibrium for myself, I think I create a greater possibility for harmony in the whole. But when
Exactly.
I'm angry and frustrated and annoyed, then I'm just pulling it all down. At however level my my interactions impact it.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you there wholeheartedly. Hmm.
I'm talking too much. My throat's getting dry.
That's okay. And I would like to say, Emmy, thank you for bringing that up, because that's, again, the topics that we're afraid of talking about.
Mhm.
Um, just like me, that could have been me. I look inside to see if I have any of these patterns within me. And that's a good point too, Emmy. It's like, what about that outside of me is triggering something inside of me? Because we often talk about mirroring, right? When something triggers us, it's mirroring something back to us, and you can't wipe the mirror and clean it or change it when it's within you. You have to go look the other way.
Well, in
So
the practice of Ho'oponopono, which is a sacred Hawaiian practice, is all about there is only one. So if there is only one, whatever I'm seeing out here exists in here. And so I
Mhm.
can go in here and I can begin to do healing work in here, which will translate and transform whatever's going on in the world around me. So we're definitely going to have some great conversations Wednesdays at noon right here on New Thought Media, YouTube, Facebook. Cheryl and I are going to be talking about anything and everything. We'll have guests sometimes. We'll be just the two of us other times. You can send in your questions while you're on. You can be sending questions or comments in through the comment box, and we will deal with those as we go along. spiritcafe2@gmail.com. And you can send us any little thing you'd like to hear us talk about and explore. I am so excited, Cheryl. Thank you so much for being my guest today. I am really excited to have these conversations with you and to get Spirit Cafe up off the ground and changing lives, changing worlds, changing me.
yeah, one person at a time, right? And it starts right here. It
Starts
was
right.
my pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I love you. Bye, everybody. This is The Joy Show. We'll be back again next Friday when my guest is Enrico Colantoni, actor extraordinaire. So see y'all then. Bye for now.